Everyone, thank you so much for joining us for Symbiosis Weekend Events. Today, we are so glad to have Janine Mitchell with us, and she's going to take us with her on her journey. It's been almost a year, and she has worked extremely hard. I don't think I've seen anyone, in the Symbiosis program work as hard as her. She's very prolific, and I just can't wait for you to hear her story. So over to you, Janine.
Thank you. I'm just going to try and share my screen. Just give me one moment. You can see?
Yes, I can. It's good.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
So I wanted to just start out with a little bit about myself. Obviously, it's been a massive year, and I can definitely say trying to put together a slide presentation for an hour was really like fitting an elephant into an anthole because of how much work I had done and how many photos I had taken. So I just wanted to start with acknowledging the Wadawurrung people, which is the land that I've actually created all the work on, and where I'm coming to you from this evening. And they do a lot of amazing cave work here. We're one of the oldest generations of Indigenous people, so I just wanted to recognise them before we start. A little bit about myself and some of the things that I love. I started art from probably about 5, 6, 7 years old. I've always been painting. I remember starting with oils and then doing watercolors and moving on to pastels and doing all kinds of things and, doing bits of classes, not formal classes so much. I think about Marina, who's done fine arts and graphic design. Mine were more, going to little classes here and there in evening college. And eventually that was where I was exposed to calligraphy. But I've always considered myself an artist. And so it's interesting how the term calligrapher has sort of grown on top of that, that sort of lens. I thought I'd just start with something about the sorts of things that I love, me personally, because it'll give you some sense of really who I am. And I just love old things. I don't know why. I love old paper and old writing and old letterpress documents and old brushes and anything that sort of speaks with a life and a history in it, that really talks to the people that were here before us. That really moves me. Anything of that sort of ilk really moves me. My favorite thing on earth is Myrocalligraphia Monumenta, one of the most exquisite books that's ever been reproduced as a facsimile. If I had to be on a deserted island with only one book, this would be it. At least there'd be plenty of entertainment until I was popping off the little old earth. I'm a fan of decay. I love things that are aging. I love gardens anyway, but aging flowers I find a particular beauty in, and I really enjoy the chance to just sort of see the delicate nuances, all of these little colours that come up as part of that decline. And then the real garden proper. Anyone that knows me knows that I love peonies. There's something about the garden, something about petals, something about the colour that really speaks to my heart. And it definitely moves me. If I'm down, I'll be in the garden or at least in a florist looking at flowers. Many people don't know I'm also into stitching. I do quite a lot of stitching as well. And you'll see, I thought it was quite funny that I found that similar sort of petal shape from, some past things that I had done. And again, this is actually me stitching from Myrocalligraphia Monumenta, and I do intend to actually add the lettering to this particular work. Another fave thing of mine is dancing. I've been dancing pretty much all of my adult life for a very long time. I did actually do a competition. I danced at the Australian Dance Championships, and I danced for many years, where I was doing some 4 to 5 nights a week, and I was very fit. We were doing 4 to 5 hours every night after work, and I really love the sense of movement. And there's a lot of relationship between all of these things I love and writing. So just some examples of my work historically speaking. So many of you might have seen some of these works before, but I've obviously come from a diverse range of things, working from traditional and contemporary pieces, pointed pen, broad pen, brushes, ruling pens, anything in between, pretty much, I've pretty much tried. I started my calligraphic learning in 1994, and obviously Dorothy always says that's decades long, and it really is decades. So I've spent a long time learning and crafting and studying. I've done some really long-term classes, and I've studied with most of the well-known international calligraphers all around the world. So I really have put my heart into the calligraphy side. But at some point, I guess it's like artists, you start to move on from tradition and you start to venture out into what else can I do with basically this thing that I've spent years learning and crafting. And so you'll see my work starts to diverge. I paint as well. And obviously, there's an interaction between my painting work and my calligraphy work that's really for me now turned to the lettering art side of things. This was a piece that I did with someone else who's actually on this call, and using their words and constructing these shards for an exhibition for veterans. And it's still a piece I very much love. Quite moves my heart from a words and a piece perspective. Everything in here is letters. Still love this piece as well. This is a piece about my life story from when I was younger. And I know everyone wants to think this is actually a very pleasant page, but I've had a very difficult life. And this really belies, the truth of that life. Now, moving on from some of the past side of life, why did I join Symbiosis 3? Now, I know that Dorothy probably was surprised when she got my message. She'd put the note out online, basically mentioning about the mentoring coming up. And when I saw that message, to be very truthful, I was at a fairly low ebb in my life. The last couple of years have been very, very difficult for me. And I was actually thinking of giving away the calligraphy. Now, that might surprise some people on this meeting, but I was at the stage where I felt like my work wasn't really being enjoyed or appreciated. And so I reached out to Dorothy and pretty much said, I know I'm an unlikely candidate, but would you consider me for the mentoring? And she very kindly, she was super kind and super amazing at responding, and very encouraging and really warm. And for that, I'm very, very grateful. But I just want to take a moment to acknowledge all of the work that she has done. I mean, I think it's such an incredible journey. It really, really is quite an amazing thing to do all of this work for people you've never met, just to give them a chance to, sort of get their mind onto where they want to go, and to have a little bit of a helping hand and a guiding spirit to doing that. This, of course, is my fellow mentor and mentee group. I'll come back to Marina later. Natalia and Tatiana, who've been, with me during most of the year as we've worked through this process. So a massive thank you, Dorothy, for everything. It's been really quite a life-changing journey. Now, what was the goal that was set by Marina? Now, Marina sort of began by stimulating my mind in ways that I really was not expecting. She was generously sharing quotes at the beginning and really encouraging us more to just think about the theme and what we would produce. But there was no pressure to produce, and I thought that was actually quite a refreshing way to take us forward. So our initial goal was to think about something that was achievable, something that was in between something achievable and the third one, which was to be the exhibition of our lifetime. Now, it might surprise people to know I've actually never done a solo exhibition, which probably seems a little strange. I've had work shown in Russia, and I've had work in single, just one piece at a time or two pieces at a time, but I've never actually had my own exhibition. And so it was quite a thing for me to think about, what would it mean to do the exhibition of my lifetime? One of the things that came into what I was thinking about was this process called shuhari, And it's a Japanese process where we talk about learning, detaching, and transcending. And you can probably watch the video if you'd like to read a little bit more about this. But this essentially is in parallel with my calligraphic study, as it were, where I began with learning, almost religiously. You're given things to follow, and you learn the model, and you move on, and then you try to detach from that. And then you're at the stage where you try to transcend that. And I think, that for me is really a purposeful way to describe the journey that I feel that I'm actually on. Some of the key books from Marina sharing. Now, she would, funnily enough, just drop in a quote. She would drop in a quote and she would say, "Oh, it's a really old book, you won't find it." And I would go to my favourite secondhand bookstore, and there on the day that I would go, it would be sitting on the shelf. And I'd always be pretty excited that I came back and got to read, whatever it was that she was referring us to. Quotes from this book. I went back to the store and I said, "Have you ever seen this book?" And she said, "Oh, I saw it 2 days ago." And then the 4 agreements, which for me has been really a life-changing way of thinking and working through things, in particular, not taking things personally, doing your best and not making assumptions, and using impeccable words. And that for me has been something that I've really, really tried to implement more broadly than just through this process. So I'm very grateful for that introduction. I want to just talk a little bit about, the topic that we were set. And I think one of the things that really helped me get meaning was that Marina chose the inner garden as a metaphor, as a way for us to start. And because I could really relate to that so heavily, in fact, it wasn't just the inner garden, it was the outer garden as well that I related to. It really helped me get almost an instant stream of more ideas than I could deal with, to be quite frank. And part of the process for Symbiosis 3 was that we were to take notes of our meetings and to record our journey and to record our process so that we could do exactly this in the presentation and share that side of life. But I thought this quote, "The garden, like the house and family," is almost universal in giving meaning to the human microcosmos. And I thought this particular quote was really meaningful on the basis that everything that I wanted to portray had meaning about me as a human microcosmos. So talking a little bit about my process, and it was very, very hard to decide which bits would I share. I have pages and pages and pages of notes. So at the very beginning, I spent some time basically pulling together quite a number of ideas and drawing them up, just in little coloured thumbnails and slightly bigger for some of the ones that I thought might be part of a life-changing, way of taking forward my exhibition of a lifetime. And you'll see here, this was actually what Marina chose from what I had put together. But I also started on some fashion stuff as well, which I haven't finished yet. I'll get to it at some point. And of course, I started, basically working from there. I think Marina was encouraging me quite early on, stop coming up with ideas, just get working. And I know Dorothy at one stage said to me, "You've started really early and you're working really hard." And I said, "I don't want to waste a moment." I actually began with a book for that installation, and I'm just showing only one page because this is the only page where I've obliterated enough to not be concerned that there's anything remaining. And I had started with the process of writing my own words and turning the actual illustration that I had into lettering and other designs. And I was very, very good back then at keeping all my notes, keeping the colours recorded and what had I done and how had I drawn it and what had I written. That actually was harder to maintain over the course of the year when I got so prolific. Things just kept happening and I just kept going with those ideas. So the first series was moving from inside the book to basically looking at books in a slightly different way. And I was feeling particularly down at one stage when in the start of this process. And I went into the city, which is kind of my escape and release. And I went past a florist and I saw all these beautiful flowers and I was really, really moved. So I bought some of those flowers home with me. It made me feel better. And then after that, online, I stumbled across Joyce Sullivan, and I do want to actually read to you her words, which I reached out to her. She said, "You can use my words for all of your pieces." And I thought she was the most incredibly generous woman. She was so kind. She didn't ask me what for. She didn't really explore anything. I've stayed in touch with her during the course of the year. So I'm just going to read this to you. When my friend is low, we walk by the river. It's somehow still a pandemic, and we have nowhere to put our rage. My friend tells me how he has begun to imagine the finishing touches of his life. He counts the things he's lost. As he talks, I imagine tethering a silver thread from his body to mine. It's dusk. The geese are all headed home. Our two bright shadows grow longer. Grief is a clump of dark feathers in the grass. The sky runs purple and petals out. We look around. It's almost cruel, he laughs, after everything, how the world still insists on being beautiful. Now, I was really moved by those words, and so I was so pleased when she basically let me use those words to create my works of art. So moving on, just on that basis, the words throughout the book are those words, and they are just reproduced with different emotional meanings. And I really wanted to convey both the inner and the outer garden. So most of these pieces are really about moods, sentiments, points in time, changing influences, changing feelings. And so I'd love it, if you want to in the chat, maybe share your, as we go through, you can share your thoughts on the work or share your thoughts on what you think the pages mean, or indeed the 3D works when we get up to them. So I'm just going to show you a little bit. I haven't actually put all of the book pages in here. And in fact, there are many more than what you would have seen online in the video. So many pages that I haven't actually finished yet, and I will finish them, and I will then basically move on to try to produce a properly printed book. I had a lot of joy in doing this work, and to be frank, I couldn't stop. I just had so many pieces on the go at once. Some pieces took months, some pieces were, a day, and some pieces that I hated at the beginning turned out to be some of the pieces that I loved. So it was quite an interesting process. But you'll see on this one that I really wanted it to feel like a bookhand. I wanted it to feel like I was writing rather than doing calligraphy. And it was almost thinking about symbol as language, almost like, hieroglyphs or Mayan symbols or other things from history. So I'm just giving you a sense of some of the pieces. In everything, it's writing. This is writing, and I'll talk a little bit about this as well. This is writing. All this is writing. Everything in here is writing. Everything on here is writing. So you can see, I've carried through a similar theme, but I've tried to change the emotional level of each piece. This piece took me probably the entire year. I started, was really, really very slow to keep working through, and but I just tried to keep going. I had many things in parallel that I worked on. I just kept working. I tried to work with discipline. When I finished my long day job, I tried every day to try and at least do an hour or 2 hours to try to work through the things that I wanted to finish. This piece here, interestingly, if you can look here, ended up having a little hand without me even trying. And I'll talk some more about some of those little coincidences shortly. I also worked on an overhead book. And so there were all sorts of things along the side of this journey that I couldn't possibly share tonight or put into the online exhibition as well, but you'll see them over time online. Again, all lettering. Excuse me, just stop for one little drink.
Janine, are you able to see there's a box that says stop sharing?
Yes, I
And
can hide.
yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Sorry. That just goes to show you my Zoom expertise. So I also, during the course of the journey, thought about, do I make it darker or do I keep it sort of light and outer? Um, and I may still explore some of those things. It's quite interesting to me to see the contrast between these two. I like both of them for different reasons. And so there was a lot of trial and error. Just really, I just tried things, and a lot of things I tossed to the side, I would pick up again and keep working on. And some of those I got to work, and some of them I was still yet to try. Now, just a little more about the creation of that book series, just moving on to the way that things sort of evolved during that process. So I began, obviously, with some thumbnails. It was very good in the beginning. I was trying to be really, really disciplined at keeping records so that I could show you as part of this presentation. And I started, doing all these little thumbnail designs, which was quite helpful because I ended up not liking the square. They felt like greeting cards. And so I moved on to this, long, narrow sort of shape that I've always loved. And it's a common theme in my work. And I tried to keep my thumbnails going as I was working through the process. And then I started to try, from the flowers that I'd fallen in love with, to actually create different types of alphabets and interpretations. I was thinking about, 3D sort of flower constructions with some sort of overhead transparency and all sorts of ways that I could break some of these little designs down. And then you'll see I've got this trial page that was just on the go all the time. And this is only a snippet of all the trials, but I thought I'd just give you some idea of almost the nightmare mess that my desk got in. I was just, every day I was trying something else, or what about this thing, or what will that look like? And really just giving myself the permission to play each time that I was sitting at the table. And it really was the discipline of just sitting at the table and making myself work wherever that took me as part of that journey. And then you'll see that I started to look at turning the petals into a cursive form of writing. Now, I haven't finished playing with this, but I definitely will. I really like where it was starting to go. So it's still all the same words, and it's still all the same underlying petal shape, but now starting to change it into something else again. See some working shots of me, one-handed photos while I was working, taking photos of painting. And really, I only used 3 brushes and a pointed pen for the whole lot. So, this if you buy a good quality brush, they last, they work well, and if you look after them, you'll have them for a lifetime. But these are things that, for me, relate to my hand, and they are an extension of you. However you're feeling on a day that you're at the table, if you're working with a brush or a pointed pen, it's much more about you, the person, than a broad pen or any other tool might be. You really get an extension of how you're feeling in the work, in my humble opinion. Now, I want to talk a little bit about synchronicity, because the synchronicity throughout the course of this year was pretty funny to me. Lots of things happened that would be considered little divine accidents. And at some point during the course of the year, I had agreed with Marina that I would go pretty much wherever the universe took me. And I tried to live by that, and I'm still really doing it now. And here's some examples of where that actually happened. And there are more examples than this, but I picked out some of these as favorite ones. So I was doing a favor for a firm that's in the city here in Melbourne, who I've known for a long time, and they were wanting to basically show these little 3D floral things. And I already had these paints out on the table while I was working. And I said, oh, I don't mind. I'll paint them and just do something simple that other people could do, so people could see what to do with these. And it turned into these little 3D flowers. I took them in, I dropped them off. They were happy. And then as I was walking past my table, I noticed that when I had taken these out of the page that they were part of, they had left all of these little shapes. And I saw, as I walked past, if you can see my cursor here, I saw petals. I saw more petals. And so where I could see petals, I turned this into an alphabet. You'll see here's my little drawings in my notebook. And then I went from that to what will it look like in paint, and I used it in an actual work. And I really, really love the idea that it's just a happy accident. I would never have thought to use these sorts of shapes or anything like that if I hadn't done that work and I hadn't had this leftover page where the paint had come through. So it was really quite an intriguing thing to me as I was going through the year. Another chance for synchronicity was I was back at my favourite little secondhand bookstore out in the country, and I stumbled across this book because I was still looking for things that were going to be my exhibition of a lifetime. And I came across this book which really reminded me of the Orchestra of Dark Music. I was really thinking that I would use this in some way. I brought it home and I started working in it. And I really, really felt an affinity with what came down. And that led to the music works. And there are a lot more music works in the book, but because some of the music and some of the actual writing still showed through, I ended up reproducing my own separate pages as part of that. And a friend of mine has done one line, and I'm just going to let you listen to one line. This is writing. There was no plan for music in here, but this friend of mine, Edward Theologus, thank you very much for, at very, very last minute, creating me the sound that goes with this music. So I just wanted to play a little bit of that. I was quite touched to see letters that were about music, that were about words, come to life again as music. And I think it feels a bit like that mixture of inner and outer garden, and that almost that interaction and pull between them. So I was quite excited when I actually had the chance to listen to that. Oh, and it's going to keep playing until I get off here. Oop. And so just moving on. So the work evolves some more, and this time with a different protagonist. That left me this little present on my table one day, and it turned out to actually be a little paint-eating mouse. So you can work out what the presents were, but he had actually eaten a significant portion of my hand-mulled paints from America because I had been working and I had been leaving them out. And so this little strange but unusual little gift took me on another path into clay and working with clay color, because it really basically reminded me, what would it feel like if I took these shapes into something that was tactile, something that people could really see and feel and get a sense of in real life, rather than it being on a page and not without that similar dimension. That then took me to trying to make letters and pages out of clay. I'm still going to finish these, but they're not finished yet. And I even found some liquid clay that you could pour out of a squeezy jar. And here's the really awful capital D for a copper plate attempt, just basically to see how it worked. So bringing the inner garden to life, really thinking about this connection between thoughts and feelings and emotions and imagination, and really how work in the garden, just like writing, becomes art and radiates beauty. So there's really those connections between everything that we're doing from the garden to the hand. And that brought me to bringing to life the rooms of sentiment, or the rooms of emotion. And the idea behind this was basically a series of possible installations for a gallery that people could actually walk into and be part of and get a sense of and hopefully feel some of the things that I was feeling. I learned a lot by doing this work. I've actually not really done a lot of 3D sort of work. And I realized that one of my deficiencies really is that I have a lot of paper-based skill. I have a lot of painting and lettering and all those types of skills, but I probably could benefit from learning some other types of skills to go with that suite. And you'll see here that I wanted to get some of those shadows and reflections from putting the work outside. You'll see here some of the shadows showing, reflecting both the piece and the work inside it. And I did actually drown these in black paint, basically to show the inner garden dampening down the outer garden. So these obviously move. You would have maybe seen the video online. And the idea would be that this is a room that you actually walk into and are part of. And one of the things that Marina and I did talk about was it still felt too clean. And one of the things that she suggested I think about was whether or not indeed I could turn this into a more tactile thing if I perhaps used fabric. And we began to talk about things like it takes a village to make an installation. So if I was doing something like this, might I consider the outer garden being something like soft, friendly silk, but the inner garden maybe being something rough and tough like Hessian? And that was, something that I'd really like to consider doing. Here's some of the making of those rooms of sentiment. And you'll see here I've had to be, working out sizes of things and gluing things. And, after I made all these clay pieces, which is actually really hard work, I'd made one construction and it actually was too heavy for the construction. So I had to reinforce it and then remake it again. Found these things that were like a clear type of thing, but they stuck together. So then I had to paint them with nail polish. So all through the journey, I've had to learn how to solve things and work out how to get things to be in the way that I wanted. And you can see here it ends up having a little bit of translucency as well, and just gives you some sense of the work as a whole. So moving on to the next piece. So this was still that combination of the hand, and in this case, the hand pretends to play. And I wanted to basically try to capture inner and outer garden again. And it was along that same line of thinking about the garden as handiwork, that writing and gardening are connected to what we loosely call handiwork. We use our hands to basically drive a range of tools. And along the line that, the garden really is man's handwriting. And so there's all those connections there for me, which, have been really intriguing as we've worked through the process. So at this stage, the handiwork, it was still too pretty. Marina came back from her few months on her world trip, as I like to say, the world famous traveller and teaching all around the place. And it was still too pretty at this stage. And we started to talk about, I wanted to have more pain in this piece. I wanted people to be able to get a sense of meaning. And I started with pins, and you can see these long pins, and I couldn't get them to stick. So then I put them through felt, and that didn't work. So, then Marina was suggesting these harsher sorts of tacks. And they really, really did work. And again, I went down another path entirely. And I really started to think about, an artwork that's not really able to make people feel uncomfortable or to feel different, even if they didn't feel uncomfortable, is not one worth creating. I really felt it was very important to me that people could respond, people could feel something, people could get their own perception of my creations in these works. So you'll see here, thinking more about the reflection of this, that you can start to get some sense of that with these photos and the light playing on the hand. So this piece here was basically continuing that particular perspective, but with my own hand joined, and really, really showing some internal things that I'm going through at the moment. And I'm sure you can think about the meaning of that for yourself. But, really, in essence, I wanted to show this playing music, playing at life, and my hand combined with this other hand that I had created. And then I move on to the chamber of dark music, and you can see here some of the reflections as I moved into a different type of work. And at this stage, I was thinking about something called shakai from Japanese, and I know I'm probably not pronouncing all of these words correctly, but this term is about borrowing the scenery, and it's obviously to do, again, with a garden principle rather than creation principle, but I really felt like it was an important part of creating this work. And so here you'll see this particular piece borrowing the scenery from around it, and borrowing the scenery of the garden and its sunlight as part of its way of portraying some of the meaning that I wanted to portray. Again, similarly, you can see a borrowed perspective in the garden as part of this work. And just to show you, the single glass pieces, I was creating these, and the construction standing free in the garden. One of the most difficult things about this was actually being able to photograph it or to video it without my mug in here. So, I was holding the camera in many different ways, trying to move around the work, and I really was trying very hard not to get my hand or myself in the work, but that was actually quite a difficult thing. One of the challenges about this piece was actually constructing it and keeping it fairly solid to move it around. This just gives you some sense in different light of the things that were tried in trying to pull this thing together and to get it to show the inner from the outer. I also tried adding mirrors to this work to extend some of the inner. So you'll see this double up effect here, and the extra sorts of reflections coming through. And it was actually quite interesting to see the piece in the many different perspectives that came with, was it glass or was it the mirror? Was the mirror at the bottom? Was the mirror around the outside? And my intention originally was that I was going to do a mirror cube to match this, and I probably still will at the point that I can put it in a gallery, and really then to get a reflection of people attending what was there in a garden, basically like. So moving on, just to show a little bit about the making of the glass piece, and there was a lot of work in this piece, and I had to write backwards, which was quite challenging. I put the music staves on the outside and I put the writing on the inside, because that's where I wanted to basically have it really the dimension of being inner. And so writing backwards was, quite an interesting thing, because I'm not writing English, I'm writing in symbols that are already, almost bidirectional. And so I was really focused on turning everything back to front and continuing writing. Excuse me. Even flourishing was in reverse. My normal swing, which would normally go that way, had to be the opposite way. And so, it was quite an interesting exercise. Every single tack had to be glued. So you can see me sticking it in the head of the glue thing, and putting them all down one by one. It was really, really not a pleasant experience putting them all down. They're actually really, really sharp. But I did love the effect. As I was creating it, I was really, really excited. And even before then, I had taken the glass out in individual pieces out into the garden, basically to see, how it worked. Now, that's the pieces that I obviously put in the online exhibition. There are many, many more things sitting on my table that I haven't finished. I don't know whether I will finish them. But certainly what I do intend to do is to finish the paper book and to continue working on the real book series that would lead me to have a proper exhibition, a proper installation, and a real sense of creating that exhibition of my lifetime. I think it, was a wonderful way for Marina to encourage us to push ourselves out of the comfort zone into a place where we were unfamiliar and hadn't worked before. And for me, that's been, really such an amazing experience. Now, just sharing a little more synchronicity, I wouldn't have shared this normally because I wanted it to be a surprise, but I wanted to find a bit of music for Marina that I could work on and say thank you. And as I went trawling through a box of really old music booklets, I found this one, of course, naturally calligraphic. I was pretty excited, but when I got it home and I turned to the inside, I found it was to a water lily. And I thought, there it is again. There's the universe giving me a present for Marina that she doesn't have yet because it's not finished. And I'm sorry to spoil the surprise. So moving on now to Marina, who I nicknamed the seed planter. I thought it was appropriate because we were working in the garden. And I first met Marina in July 2017 when she was teaching at summer school in Melbourne. And she worked us hard, I can tell you. I had trouble keeping up. But it was an amazing workshop on so many levels. And one of the things that really strikes me, one of the things that has stayed with me even since then, before this process with Symbiosis 3, was that there was a sharing of mind, a sharing of spirit, a sharing of words and meaning and theory that she had learnt from study, from Japanese brush artists and other things that she had studied. And it really spoke to me. It really stayed with me. And I tried to find some of those things after she'd gone back home. And so I was really overjoyed to have the chance to work with Marina again. And now that I'm older and I think probably more ready for the straightness of some of the messages that she was giving us, which I found really pushed me along, really made me work hard. I didn't want to waste a moment of the chance. I knew the year would go past quickly, and so I tried to do justice to having basically the privilege of working with her again, and I hope that I've managed to do that. But I did want to say a special thank you, Marina. You're an amazing woman, and try not to get emotional, but you really are one of the most enlightened people I think I've ever met. Seriously well educated and so generous. We met every week in the middle of the night for me, but every week. And after that, she would share all sorts of things to stimulate our thinking, our eyes, our creative talents. And I can't say thank you really enough for that absolute chance to have a time with you that's really across an entire year. So thank you very much. And that's the end of my presentation. So thank you everyone that took the time to come online and support me and hear about the works. And I hope you've enjoyed the presentation. And thank you again very much.
Wow. Thank you, Janine. That was awesome. So awesome. I'm yeah, it's amazing.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Dorothy, again, from the bottom of my heart for the chance.
So very welcome. Do you all have questions or comments? Okay, Janine, you got to look at the comments in the chat. There are lots, but does anyone have questions for Janine?
They've all gone shy.
Sorry?
They've all gone shy.
Yeah, look at that. Monster amount of work, amazing, wonderful work, excellent in depth and approach, fabulous work, Janine. A lot of congratulations, very moving, very inspiring. So Janine, I'm curious to know, because when you first started, right, on the journey, you said that you wanted to find your voice. Do you think that you have achieved that for yourself?
I do feel like I've found my voice, but it was an interesting process because I feel like I was finding my voice more at the end of the journey, and that the whole year of work was they say that it's the process and you have to do the work to get where you're going. I feel very much like the work was in the doing to get me to the culmination at the end. And in the glass piece, I really feel like I achieved something that was very me and very different. and will probably take me in quite a different direction.
Yeah, I saw somebody commenting earlier. Now I cannot find it, but someone said that she could see you in this series of works, and then yet you have taken it to a new level. And I think that's true, right? I mean, this is how, as you just said. Yeah. So congratulations.
Thank you very much. Will you save me the chat,
Yes,
Dorothy?
of course. I will send it to you. You didn't mention your ability to pass on your learning to others. Margaret
Thanks,
said,
Marg. Marg's one of my long-time students who will probably be complaining at me because I haven't done any teaching for a while. But yes, thank you. Obviously, the ability to tell people what they need to be doing to improve.
yeah.
So thank you, Marg.
I want to ask you, because Janine, you have had so much accomplishments already. Why did you feel that you needed to go on this journey? I mean, what was it that kind of pushed you in this direction?
I would say the catalyst for me, in addition to some personal things, was also that for many years I have created work that I loved, but that other people maybe didn't love. I would submit the work to Letter Arts Review. I've never been selected. I've done some works that I really thought, were pretty good, even if you're saying that about yourself. And but nothing I've ever submitted was selected. So I was feeling a bit, I guess, despondent. I'd had a bit of criticism that my work was too much like people I'd been learning from when I had actually worked hard to really change right away from what I had been taught. And so I was, I guess, struggling, and I was really at the stage where I thought, I'm going to toss this away. I'm not going to do it anymore. And so I was just on, similar to Tatiana, I think, just on that threshold of going, not sure why I'm doing this anymore. If nobody appreciates the work, who do I want to show it to? And I think a good piece of advice, excuse me, that Marina did give me, which I didn't mention because there are so many, it's impossible to remember them all. But one of the most important things that she said to me in the beginning was, she said, you are not having the opportunity for your work to be seen while you are standing next to it. And what she meant by that was that people will see photos, because I live regionally. I'm a long way from other people. So people might see a photo. I'd send them a photo, but I don't get to see their reaction. And so one of the things she said to me in the very beginning was, don't show your work. Don't show your work unless you can take it to the person and put it in front of them, and show them in the flesh. And that was very good advice for me, because it meant that when I finally did go along, and Deirdre was the first person that I tortured for a day, showing her all my things that I'd been working on. Look, Deirdre, I've got to show you this, I've got to show you that. It meant that I did get to see that really genuine reaction to what I had been creating, and that was a very important thing for me. Some other friends didn't understand that. Some other friends were not terribly happy with me. I did have comments like, haven't I earned seeing it on my phone? And I would say, no, actually, you haven't. So, it was an important part of the journey for me in learning that the way to see and enjoy the reaction is to be with the work when it's shown.
Interesting. Yeah, I just want to ask if Natalia and Tatiana want to respond to your presentation, because they were your teammates.
Yeah, of course, I would like to say that I'm very happy to be your classmate, and I told you that you are the second teacher for me, the second mentor. Marina was the first, and you are the second. So yes, thank you so much for helping me, for asking right questions. for forcing me to sing. Yeah, and I really admire your work. Yeah, because when I see your book, okay, it's not finished, but when I see it, it's like a huge world for me. Yeah, it's not a book. It's like a world for me. Yeah, it's something bigger than a book. So, Janine, I admire your work. I'm speechless. Actually, I'm speechless because I can express all my feelings, and I just want you to know that I'm so happy to meet you, and definitely we will stay friends after this journey. And I wish you luck. I wish you to have your solo exhibition very, very soon, and I'm sure that you have it. There is no way you won't have it. So good luck. Good luck in your calligraphy, and never give up calligraphy. Never, never, never. Okay?
Thank you. Thank you very much,
You,
Tatiana.
Tatiana.
Thank you for undoing my emotional exterior cover.
Natalia, you're muted, darling. You're
Natalia, you're
muted.
talking to yourself.
You need to unmute.
I'm so happy that Janine found her way, because when I joined the program, I said, "Oh, Janine is my classmate." It was very intimidating, but
Sorry.
no, not at all, because I think our meetings were very, very rich and very touching and very emotional. Um, You gave me a lot of strength when I didn't have it, to see that you were tired, but you were working, and I was so much in pain, and I had to work as much as you did. So it was very inspirational for me, and you did an amazing job, really, in all your journey. I think I have seen only half of the pieces. I've just learned half of them here. Just amazing your presentation. Yes, because we didn't have time or to share all these final pieces in our meeting. So half of it for me was very new, and I think you did an amazing job, and I'm
Thank you
very
very much.
proud of you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Wow, thank
Keep it
you.
going, okay? Don't
I might
stop.
have to get the tissues now.
Yeah, I just want to honor the three of you ladies, and of course Marina is not here. When I put the three of you together in a team, I was wondering if it was a good thing, because I recognize that you are very, very strong women, and that can be good, and also it can be not good. But I've just seen how you've supported each other. Amazing. I mean, the synergy, like the word describes symbiosis. And Janine, I know that you have taken a lot upon yourself to record the notes. You know, I know all of you took turns. And I just want to thank you for being such a support and a strength to one, you know, to you, to the three of you. It's an example of a mentoring group that has gone right. You know, so I think it's been very inspirational watching you on Facebook. I mean, I've given access to your Facebook chats, and it's always very interesting every now and then to pop in and see what's going on. And you know what? To the rest of people who are listening, they would actually go and look for things for each other. They say, "Hey, look, I saw this and it reminded me of you. Hey, you want to try this idea? You know, I've got this pattern and all that." And there was just so much honor and professional respect one for another. And it blows me away, and it really touches me. So thank you all for doing this. And thank you, Janine, for a fabulous presentation. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm only sad that Marina's not here to be part of it. And, you know, I just want to reiterate that the two of you, amazing women in totally different ways. And you've both got your own talent aside from that. But what an incredible opportunity to help artists get back on their horse and continue their journey, who might otherwise have left the corral and gone and taken up sculpture or something. But thank you very, very much, and thanks to Natalia and Tatiana for such really warm and very emotional, provoking
Can I
comments.
say something else? Janine, you don't have to do art for the rest of the world and to get approval from them. You have to do it for your own sake.
And I am.
And it's a therapy. It's what I do. It is you don't have to search for the likes or the approval or the opinions of other people. Do it for your own soul, because there is no better reward than that. Okay.
Yeah, I second that.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you very, very much.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm going to stop the recording because it's on the hour. So let me just do that. Yes.